there was an amazing article written on Gawker. Ryan Tate from Gawker wrote this piece about Steve Jobs. And, you know, Steve Jobs just passed away, so you read a lot of stories about his life, and most of them are extremely positive. And, you know, of course that makes sense because he was someone who was inspirational, he was a great business leader, and he impacted all of us in one way or another. However, Ryan Tate says, look, we need to look at another side of Steve Jobs that people are too afraid to talk about. So he gives us specific examples of how he was a bit of a jerk.
Too soon. Too soon. Okay, now look, that's why people don't want to talk about it. But all kidding aside, I think that's actually a good thing to talk about because, of course, nobody's an angel, nobody's perfect. And I think you need to have a smart discussion about the totality of a person. And even after I read this, I still admire Steve Jobs.
Totally.
But there's definitely sketchy stuff in there, so let's have a smart conversation about it.
All right, first I want to start off with what Ryan Tate said about Steve Jobs and his interaction with his employees, okay? He said that Steve Jobs was a bit of a prick with his employees, okay? He was tough on them, he belittled them once in a while. But look, he's the CEO of a major company, okay? So it's not surprising to me at all that a CEO would respond that way to his employees. So let me give you an example. Last month, Fortune magazine actually did this piece about Steve Jobs and how he was talking to his team about Mobile Me, right? And he was upset with the functionality of Mobile Me, so he basically belittled them for half an hour straight. Mm-hmm. So we have a couple of quotes from you from that meeting. Apparently, he began the meeting by saying, "Can anyone tell me what Mobile Me is supposed to do?" Then he received a satisfactory answer and he says, "So why the fuck doesn't it do it?"
I like it. Okay. So far, I got no problems with this. Okay. And you know what he did? At the end of the meeting, he fired the head of the division. Okay. That's badass.
No, I don't know if that's badass. I think that's a little extreme.
Yeah.
It's a little extreme.
Yeah, but you know what? He leg dropped him. Okay? He threw him off the ropes, clotheslined him, and leg dropped him, but he should have. Look, here's the thing, right? CEOs aren't supposed to be nice guys.
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay, and I don't mean that they have to be jerks, right? But he does need to be competitive, and he does need to have consequences if someone doesn't do their job. And he didn't fire the lowest guy in the totem pole. He hired the head of the group. Fired the head of the group, I should say. So to me, that again makes sense.
Listen,
right.
But everyone, regardless of what field of work you're in, everyone makes mistakes. I know that I've made mistakes. Jesus,
make one again, see how it turns out for you.
Okay, but here's the thing. Like, can you imagine firing me for every mistake I've made, right?
No, but that's not how this. Look, my sense of the story was that this was a significant rollout. It was not done right. It's not just one mistake that you make, et cetera. I think that's taken out of context. And if you have a series of mistakes and you screwed up a product, well, you got to go, son. I got no problems with that.
All right.
And that's nitpicking him, if you ask me. I'm sure, and in fact, the story says he was lovely to other employees, but he had high standards. I like that he had high standards.
I have no problem with high standards. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that guy shouldn't have been punished, but I'm just saying, like, just because the product didn't turn out the way that you wanted it to and it wasn't exactly perfect doesn't mean you immediately fire him. I think that a good CEO should work with the person first. So look, that aspect of his work doesn't bother me at all, okay? He was a tough CEO, that's fine. But then there's another aspect of Apple that I think is questionable, and that's something that Ryan Tate brings up. He brings up the fact that the majority of their products are actually manufactured in China, right? Mm-hmm. And they're manufactured by young Chinese teenagers. Some of them work about 14, 15 hours a day, and they work in non-air conditioned buildings, and they're really struggling. They're hardly making any money.
Boo-hoo.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. No, look, here's the reality of that, okay? Those working conditions are very tough in China, and the temperature's through the roof. There's, of course, no air conditioning, triple bunks because they're stacking people in, people working up to 15-hour days. Now, the reality, though, is that a lot of companies do that. Now, that doesn't let Steve Jobs off the hook, right? And slowly that has increased the living standard of the Chinese. And I get a lot of flack for this, but I actually think that overall, that's not such a bad thing. Now, you got to start somewhere. Unfortunately, when you go into a country, part of the reason that these corporations go in is because of the cheap labor, and then they wind up abusing that cheap labor in 100 different ways, which I'm not happy about. But eventually, the wages start rising, et cetera, as they did here in the US, and now China's beginning to have a middle class. Now, I hate the process because of the pain that real people go through, but at the same time, certainly Steve Jobs is not responsible for that whole phenomenon.
Look, Steve Jobs is the leader of that organization, of that company, right? As the leader, you have to set certain standards. If you know that your products, which are having a huge impact on the world, are being manufactured by people who are going through horrible working conditions, then you put your foot down and you say, no, I don't want to do that. Maybe it's going to cost me a little more. Look, he was a billionaire. He can afford to find a better place to manufacture the products, maybe in the United States where people need jobs, rather than doing it in China where people are suffering. Like, and I know people are going to say, well, at least in China, these people have the ability to work, right? It's jobs. No, we need jobs here in the United States. And we need to make sure that if we're manufacturing things abroad, we make sure that those factories meet the same standards that we have in the United States. I don't think that that's unreasonable, especially for such a wealthy company like this.
I hear you. Steve Jobs made $7 billion. I would hope that if I was in his position, that I would want to regulate those factories a little bit better and make sure that people are not being abused, et cetera, and that there's decent, not necessarily the same wages as here, right? And that's where you and I might differ, right? But that there is at least a certain humane and decent standards for those companies.
Yes.
And now the part that I'm amused by is the slogan that all these workers would have to say in the morning, which is the exact opposite of what Apple's supposed to be.
Right. So the building has a bunch of like slogans and things like that around the on the walls and everything. And one of them is, arise, 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 millions of hearts with one mind.
That's the Chinese slogan, and they say it in the morning as well as it being on the building, okay? Millions of hearts with one mind? That sounds so spooky, and that's supposed to be the exact opposite of what Apple does. Like, we want you to be independent.
In fact, we have an example of how Apple claims to be the exact opposite of that. Let's watch.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Think different, unless you're in one of our Chinese factories, in which case you should all have one mind. So, oops. These give you a real human being, for better or for worse. And in the end, I still think that he's a great guy. And there's not a guy in the world you're going to find that at the end you didn't think did some sketchy stuff, right? But now you know the whole picture.